everyone, and welcome back to a new video. It has been a very busy start of 2023, and if you're already part of this channel, I want to apologize for being this late with new content. I have been shooting a lot of work and I can't wait to show you something. But in the meantime, today we're talking about the film look and how you can obtain it easily in your video projects as well. As you may know, I love shooting film, and I've been editing my videos with the idea of matching the overall look of the film I'm shooting to the actual video. We're going to dive deep into DaVinci to see how I produce this look, whether it's Rec 709 or log footage, and we're going to see one specific piece of software that is changing it all for me recently, and that can change it for you as well. So if we take a look at my Fuji G617 project, you can see I tried to stylize pretty hard the footage I got, and all of this was actually shot in A7IV. So it is a Rec 709 profile, and if we go to the color page, you can see this is how I got my look. In this case, we start from a look that is like this. This is A7IV. As you can see, it's nice and ready to go. You don't need to add a lot on this. So what I did in this case was adding one of my LUTs, in which I basically crashed, as you can see here in the waveform, the whites and some of the blacks, just to reduce the dynamic range of the image. And then I went in with some other selective adjustments, so a little bit on the highlights, a little bit on the shadows. I then proceeded into adding some glow to the image. So as you can see, the highlights have this nice pop, and the light, let's say, bleeds a little bit into the image. And then I apply the film grain, which I don't know if you can see it with the YouTube compression, but it's right there. And last but not least, I added the halation, as you can see it there. So all of this can be done into the studio version of DaVinci that I have. As you can see, the workflow is the same also for other parts of the video. But I have to say, this takes quite a lot of time, and it can be difficult to match specific film stocks. So it's a matter of just trial and error, trying to get as close as possible to the film you're shooting, while there's a much easier way that I want to show you to obtain it straight away. So I've prepared here a few shots that I want to grade with this system, and I will show you just how easy it is to get many different versions of your image and just fine-tune it to your likings. So what I would basically do with an A7IV profile, so with a Rec 709 profile, is just go into this first node that I created here. Just add maybe a little bit of a curve, add a little bit of contrast. As you can see from the waveform, we have the whole dynamic range. I don't focus much on the saturation because that we're going to do that later on. But what I want is just to see a nicely lit, nicely exposed image that we can work with. Okay, so that's a very slight change to just get a little bit extra contrast in there. And then I'm just moving to the second node here. I'm going into effects, and all the way to the bottom I have the Dehancer Pro plugin. So we'll just drag and drop, and it's like a lot that you can apply. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of stuff, and quite a lot of stuff has already happened on the image. So basically, to start with, we will start with the source, which in this case is Rec 709, but bear in mind you can also go into the Cineon film log source. So if you're used to working in this color space, like transforming the color space in DaVinci and then using this, no worries, you can also do it inside there with DaVinci. In this case, we're working on Rec 709, so it's fine. First of all, we have some general parameters, as you can see. And here mostly we're gonna apply the exposure compensation. So if we want to overexpose it or underexpose it, we're gonna do it there. Same can be said here in the temperature compensation, so the color balance. And here you can warm it up or cool it down. In this case, maybe we can warm it up a touch. Okay, we have the thin compensation and these two defringing options that you can enable or disable. Here's where things get really interesting. So after the input, you have this film window, and here you can find a ton of different film profiles, as you can see. And you go from Fuji, Cinestill, Kodak, all the way to some very niche Lomochrome, Rolei kind of film simulations. And what's cool about this is that they're very, very nice, just straight out of the software. So in this case, we have a packet of Portra 400, and I have to say it would make sense to just go into Kodak Portra 400 and apply it. So maybe in the input, we can reset the color temperature, which we changed before. And as you can see, straight away, the colors and the mood of the image switches to a very Portra kind of stuff. And as you can see, you can also push and pull the film itself, which, as you can see, changes how light and shadows is rendered and the amount of grain. So you can push and pull it to stops like you would do it on a film camera. So let's say, okay, Portra 400, and then let's go on. So we have film compression, and here also you can fine tune this, and you can adjust the white point, and you can really play with all of those and try to see where like you want your white point to fall off. So you can just play and play by eye. So if a violinist play by ear, you can just play by eye here and see what catches your attention the most. We have the same thing. So after compression, we have the expand, and we can expand the black point or compress the black point. So to speak, it's like a curve, and you just crush it with a ton of contrast or just flatten it out. I usually don't play with this too much. It's a little bit hard, but you can definitely go deep into this and to help create the contrast and the dynamic range that you want. After this, there's a very nice, let's close these windows. Very nice window is the print window. And if you're used to the cinema scope and the movies, you definitely know the Kodak 2383 print film. And as you can see, the print simulation is just amazing. Like, these kind of colors are great. I used to use this with the LUTs built into DaVinci, but I found that these works absolutely great. So here as well, you can target your white, you can play again with the exposure, you can go with the tonal contrast, and in this case we are gonna make a little bit more contrast here, and we have this amazing kind of look where all of this has been building up bit by bit to create this print and this movie look. Let's move on. These are kind of secondary panels, so I'm not going super deep into those. You can play with those and find what works for you, what doesn't work for you. What I would usually go into is the film grain, so enable that, of course. You can see if you disable this, the image is now very clean because it just doesn't add any grain to it. And if you enable, it is actually quite grainy here. So if you are not into this look, you can just put the amount down like this, and also play with the film resolution. So basically, if you take it down, it's going to be more choppy, and if you take it up, it's going to be a little bit smoother. A nice touch is being able to control the film grain for both shadows, midtones, and highlights. It would usually go a little bit higher on the midtones and highlights and a little bit lower on the shadows, which is where most of the time you don't have a lot of image detail and it kind of just looks like noise. So I would just go a little bit back with the shadows and a little bit higher with midtones and highlights. I'm not touching the chroma, and then I just take a look at it from a zoomed out perspective and I really like what I'm seeing. The last thing that I love is halation. You have seen it in my videos before, and this is very nice. Like when you enable this, you really have to zoom in a touch, but you can see this red contour effect. So basically what you want to do is get this a little bit higher and just make it pop so that you can see it properly. Like with the amplify, the global diffusion, you can get like how much it's visible. I don't know if you can see it through YouTube, but you can definitely see the difference there, right? Around the white pixels, you get this nice halation look, which is just amazing to me. I love it. And as you can see, it's very filmic. Another one is bloom. I've added it many times into DaVinci as well. A good thing is that now you can do everything in the same panel and you don't have to switch between nodes. You can just go back into the window and do whatever you want. So a tiny bit of bloom. This is already quite bloomy, quite soft. So would probably enable this and then just take it back a touch on the amplify so that we don't have a ton of it. It's quite subtle, but it's definitely visible if I do like this, mainly on the skin and on the box. I get the highlights a little bit softer. Vignetting, I personally don't add vignetting. In my work, if you had to, you could just go with exposure and just enable it. It comes from the side and then you can feather it and change everything you want. And yeah, thinner breath is another thing that you could enable. Just work with this as well, gate wave as well. Now I don't want this to be super long, so like get in there, play with it, have fun with it. It's very nice. So you have to go into a before and after with this. We have the Rec 709 here, and then we have our LUT here. If this was like too strong, you could just go into the output there and just fine tune the impact. So you don't have to go into the LUT, into the transparency of the LUT in DaVinci, but you can fine tune this with very subtle adjustments so that you find what works for you. Now this is maybe a little bit too strong, so it would go around 75%, and this is already looking great to me. The last thing I want to mention, you can actually create LUTs with this. So if you want this portrait LUT, you can just go there and export it like this and then use it from your LUT page in future projects. Now we'll hop into another clip. This is a clip shot on the Sony FX6 and it is shot in S-Log3 Cine color profile. So basically I have simplified it a lot. Here's the conversion from LUT to Rec 709, and then I did the basic adjustments, so we have kind of a standard look ready to go. Now we will then hop into our effects tab, into the Dehancer. I selected Rec 709 again. You could do the Cine film log workaround if you want. And this time we are gonna try to go with Kodak Gold film simulation. There you go. So Now we have Kodak Gold in there. We want it to be maybe a little bit overexposed. I usually overexpose Kodak Gold one stop. And what we're gonna do is also warming this up a touch. You could warm this before because the image here was already a little bit cold, but we're gonna do it into there as part of our lot. I can see this being a little bit greenish as well, so we're gonna go into here and correct that as well. Okay, this is a good starting point. I'm just going straight into our print, Kodak print profile, and here as well, targeting the white touch higher, pushing it touch higher, and just go into this nice colorful look. Now would go a little bit more towards the gold like this, and then Kodak Gold has very little grain usually, so what we're gonna do is just go into this. So this is a -1, yeah. You're just going into the amount and go very easy on this, like a 1. A 1 is probably good. Yeah, it is there, but it's very nice and consistent, and it's not too punchy. We're mostly going to apply it into midtones, not touching the shadow. We're gonna add halation in as well. This is a little bit too much, so we're gonna take the diffusion back a touch. See, it's still a little bit too much. I'm gonna get it back, and also the impact back a little bit. Okay, great. Bloom, I think we can make these highlights bloom as well. It's nice with the snow, it's very nice. Now this is a little bit too much, so I like the areas where it's blooming, but it's definitely too much, so we're just gonna go down on the impact, so we have this affecting a little bit less of the overall image. There we go. So I think we're keeping it like this. I don't think it's too much, so maybe around 90% it's okay as the impact. And look at the difference we have here. So this reminds me of Kodak Gold. We have this brown yellow, this golden yellow, very nice deep shadows, nice contrast. I have to say it's very easy. You can just fine-tune everything and end up with a very cool looking image. And just as a disclaimer, Dehancer reached me to do a review. They haven't, of course, paid me to do this review. What they did do though is give me a promo code. It's Michele10. You can see it on the screen, and I'm gonna put it in the description as well, which will make you save 10% if you decide to buy the Dehancer software. So what they did was basically tell me, edit with this for a while, see how it goes, and if you like it, then do a review and tell other people what you found. That's all I did. You can find the promo code down below, and I would love you to check it out. So I wouldn't call this perfect, but I really like the implementation of all these sliders and tools into a very good workflow. A couple of things I would like Dehancer to implement, first of all, is the impact of the output. So basically, what I think is that everything you do into Dehancer, let's say out of the box, it's going to be very strong. So that is useful in some way to see what you're doing, but it's also a little bit too much and can actually scare you from using these presets. So maybe if the total impact was around 50% out of the box, something like this, and then you could fine tune it up and down. That would probably be a little bit easier to use. But apart from that, I find the system very reliable. And another thing I would like to see is a preview of those while I hover onto this, like you would see on Lightroom, for example, for presets or other Adobe solutions. That would be cool, so that you can see all the film simulation without actually changing it back and forth a few times. And before I go, I just want to say that when I installed the first version of Dehancer, I actually got just a few film simulations in there. And as you can see now, I have loads of them. But when I first installed it, I just had, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 of those. So I contacted Dehancer and they told me to just go into the check profiles. And here, basically, you can verify the number of camera and the number of films, 63 by the way, that you have available. So when I checked, the system realized that I wasn't using Dehancer to the full extent, and I just had to refresh this, and then I found myself with all these amazing simulation. So that is all for me. I know this is kind of a different video, but if you enjoy film and you enjoy film photography, there's a good chance that you would like to represent the look also in your videos. I thought this was helpful, and a big thank you to Dehancer for reaching out to me and make this technology available to us so that we can save some time editing stuff and use it to create more film content here. So until next time, ciao.